All right, I'll just share my screen so you've got the my slides. Cool, there we go. Hopefully that's working. Thanks, Leon, and everyone who's involved in running the conference behind the scenes. It's a big privilege to be here today. I'm going to talk a bit today about why everyone should make more stuff and the importance of your shadow portfolio. So what do I mean by that? The most important games you make are the ones that nobody else sees. But before I unpack that a bit, just to explain who I am. Hi, I'm Luke Gibson. I work in business operations at Tonic Games, the home of Fall Guys. We're a group of around 340 people who have become famous for having a high tolerance for failure, particularly when it involves falling off things. And something we believe strongly as a group of people is that games are for everyone. And to us, believing games are for everyone means backing a future with more diverse creators, players, and games. And one of the ways we try and bring forward that future is through the Tonic U community. Tonic U is our community for creators. It's for people that are building portfolios, careers, studios, or even taking their first steps in game development. And our hope there really is to support a wider set of people with the skills and opportunities they need to build rewarding careers and amazing studios. And I'll talk a little bit later about how that applies specifically to shadows and portfolios, but at least now you know who I am and why I'm here. So a good portfolio is like an iceberg. It's no secret that portfolios are central to finding work in the games industry. And there's lots of advice on how to present your portfolio. Since recruiters are short on time and often overwhelmed with applications, your work should be accessible, focused on the role you're applying for, and have the best stuff at the top. Cool, okay, best stuff at the top. That makes sense, right? Seems a little bit obvious, if anything, a bit patronizing. But having the best stuff at the top implies the existence of a lot of other stuff that is not the best at the bottom. And that's your shadow portfolio. Only 10% of the iceberg sits above the water. But I want to talk about why the bit underneath is actually more important than the bit that everyone sees. By the way, this iceberg watercolor is courtesy of Glacial Meg on Twitter, who is on a campaign to get people to draw icebergs in their stable orientations instead of like giant towers that would actually flip over in practice. So please, if you think that it's a cool picture like I did, go and buy some of her stickers. Anyway, back to the 90% of the iceberg that's underwater. It's not a new idea to value shadow stuff. Anne Lamott, who's famous for emphasizing the importance of shitty first drafts, said that all good writing begins with terrible first efforts. Malcolm Gladwell popularized the idea in Outliers that mastery of something comes after putting in more than 10,000 hours of practice. And Visa Cam V, one of the most prolific people on Twitter, is famous for saying that if you want to get good at something, do it 100 times. To quote him directly, there is interestingness in repetition that you cannot anticipate until you have a body of work. If you make 100 omelets in a row, you'll likely notice nuanced things about them. Ed Sheeran, and I'm hesitant to quote Ed Sheeran in a talk, but here we are, says that songwriting is like a dirty tap that you have to leave running for a substantial amount of time before you get clean water. One of my university tutors used to call failure scaffolding because you have to put up an awful lot of it before you can actually start on the building. I found that incredibly helpful. Just framing failure as being a necessary part of the building process is super helpful when you're feeling discouraged. So that's all well and good, but creating an iceberg from scratch is time consuming and often frustrating. It's hard to be patient and keep up momentum, and there's a temptation to want to just make the top bit of the iceberg, a few really great pieces that everyone will see. But that's not how icebergs or portfolios work. Instead, I'd like to argue for the value of being prolific. Think about the whole iceberg, not just the bit that everyone is going to look at. Because if a good portfolio really is like an iceberg, you should expect to have 90 pieces that you don't show people for every 10 that you do. So back to Visa's comment about omelets. Why would it be better to make 100 omelets, 90 of which nobody is going to see, when you could just make one good omelet? Well, for one thing, you get better at making omelettes as you make more of them. From the perspective of the 100th omelette, the first few might even seem a little bit embarrassing. Secondly, we learn quicker through failure than we do through success. Learning and problem solving are difficult and frustrating activities. And this is probably one of the core bits of this entire talk. If you take nothing else away from it, take this. Sometimes things like overly focusing on polish or tutorials or even feedback from others is a way to protect ourselves from the pain of just doing the work. Learning and problem solving are hard, but that's the quickest way that we learn. So yeah, first, you get better through repetition. Secondly, you learn quickly through failure. And thirdly, somewhere in that 100 omelets will be a few really memorable ones that you're actually really proud to show other people. Sometimes magic happens, and if you give yourself a lot more chances of being ready when it does. So the top of the iceberg is really a side effect of the bottom of the iceberg, and omelets. So the thing is, when you've made one omelet, you really don't know much about omelets in general. I'm going to stick with the omelet metaphor. You know that this one omelet was hard or easy, but not whether that was down to chance or just you. And once you've made 100 omelets, you know about which steps you find difficult, which steps are sometimes tricky, and which steps are a total breeze. You also know that sometimes you improve each time, sometimes you plateau, and sometimes you actually go backwards and you feel like you're getting nowhere. You know if people tend to like your omelets. You know if you like your own omelets. You start to be able to talk to other people who make omelets, and you can help other people who are considering making their own omelets. You've also got a much clearer idea in your mind of what makes a really good omelet. And this is why momentum is so important. If you're just getting on with making stuff and enjoying it, you'll grow and your portfolio will grow with you. And really, this is why the Tonic U community is unusual in that we prioritize encouragement over feedback. For us, momentum is far more important than accuracy, especially initially. And our focus is on helping you pick up speed. After all, the energy to make the next omelette is much more useful than a detailed analysis of the last one. I strongly believe that most people would benefit from more encouragement than they currently get. Most of us actually carry around with us a sense of where our failings are and what we want to improve about ourselves. We look at our work and we tend to see the problems with it. A current encouragement to keep working actually helps us address those issues quicker than having somebody point them out in public. And, you know, don't get me wrong, feedback is awesome, but good feedback is really hard to do well and can feel quite humbling to receive. If you do find people who give you really good feedback, you should really treasure those people because they're super special. But I think in general, and especially like on the internet with people that you don't know super well, I'd argue that the default should be encouragement because we're helping people build that momentum. So with all of that in mind, the way we actually handle that in Tonic U is we have a Discord community, and every Friday we run this thing that we call Flex Friday. The idea is that everyone flexes by posting something that they've been working on that week that they're happy to show other people. And if they're happy for it to go out publicly, then we'll share it on Twitter as well, so everybody gets a bit of a signal boost. But the idea is very much to encourage each other and to help each other build that momentum. There's also that accountability because, you know, you don't want to miss out on having something to show. And obviously this is one of those things that's easier for artists, right? So if you're an artist, then almost definitely the stuff that you've been working on that week is going to be easy to show and quite impressive. And for the rest of us that aren't artists, we have to work a little bit harder, but we still celebrate everything from like a cool function that you've refactored, or you had an interview that week, or whatever it is, just the encouragement to keep making progress on stuff. And just for like an indulgent second or two, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone in the Tonic U Discord. And I know some of you are watching today. You're all amazing, and it's a huge privilege to share this part of your journey with you. I might not know all the answers to your foliage questions, but that's what days like today is for. And I know the talks this morning already have been brilliant, and I'm looking forward to the ones later in the day. So here's a few things that people in the community have said about it. I won't read them, but if it sounds like the kind of thing you benefit from, please do join us. And, you know, it's Friday today, so you get to do a flex immediately. So there we go. Like, my main point is you should make more omelets, and you should value your shadow portfolio, the stuff that you make that isn't that great and you don't want anyone to see. That is a vital and important part of you becoming the person that you want to be. So produce as much work as you can at whatever pace you can manage, and do it with no expectation for each piece to be better than the last, because, you know, sometimes it can feel like you're going backwards or plateauing, whatever. Just keep making omelets. Make 100 omelets, and I promise you'll be glad that you did make all those omelets. So I've talked really fast. I've gone a little bit short, so I guess there's time for questions and everything.
I think there's time for questions, but I don't know if we should go and get some omelets because I'm absolutely starving now. And I think everyone else in the chat is saying that they want to make omelets. So if there's anything you can take away from today, it's omelet. But honestly, Luke, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. There are a couple of questions in the chat that we can go through. The first one is, can anyone join the Tonic Discord group that you've got there?
Yeah, we say it's for people who are over 18 and, you know, thinking about trying to get a career in the games industry, or trying to build something, or create that portfolio, or start their own game or their own studio. But if you're in any of those categories, you can join. Yeah.
Okay, cool, awesome. And then in terms of the Tonic Games group, someone's asked about kind of feedback on portfolios. Is that something that any of the you know, the employees at Tonic Games group get involved in? I know that you work closely with Intergames, which is a kind of organization that does stuff like that. So
yeah, we kind of do a lot of different things. So a lot of the staff are really active on things like Twitter, and we'll do outreach talks. So even recently, like a few of our team have like posted publicly saying, you know, if you've got any questions, or you want me to look at stuff, let me know. People do jump in the Tonic U Discord again and say, like, we've got a recruiter who's in there, we've got an engineer who's in there, VFX artist. Obviously they can't spend all of their time in there because their priority has to be their work and stuff, but they do try, people try to come in and say hi. I think that's one of the nice things about being in Mediatonic, is that there is generally that kind of desire to encourage. And, you know, obviously we can't always get to everyone, because you know, there's a lot of people that are really trying to make a go of careers in games, and
yeah.
But we'll support the ones that we can.
Okay, awesome. That's great. And I suppose off the back of that, another question there is about kind of like internships and graduate roles. Is that something that the Tonic groups does currently, or are they looking to do?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of success in the past taking graduates, and so we are really keen to hire graduates again. We were hoping to have a program up and running this summer, but with the kind of third COVID wave, it kind of scuppered our plans a little bit. So we've got a mailing list that you can join. If you go to the Tonic U website, you can sign up for our mailing list, and then you'll be the first people to hear about it once we do open those roles. But yeah, also the other thing we try and do is signpost to other studios if they're
okay,
if they're offering those roles as well, because, you know, I think it's a weird time for anyone that's trying to get into our industry, and so I think the more we can support you, the better.
Definitely, awesome. And then I suppose I'm just reading these as they come up, so if it's sporadic like conversation, then I'm sorry about that. So someone said, do you have any suggestions for showing and demonstrating your shadow portfolio while not distracting from your best stuff?
Yeah, well, my main argument is that you shouldn't show your shadow portfolio except to people that you trust. I think what I'd say is, like, just expect to be building a huge amount of work, and just be as prolific as you can with fewer expectations, because just it's based off the fact that we see a lot of people that kind of get stuck on like the first couple of things that they're making, and they really want those things to be better. And they think that the route towards making those things better is to put more work into those first few things. Whereas actually, if you just kind of let go and accept that the first few things that you do aren't going to be as great, and you just keep going, build that momentum, you'll improve a lot quicker. So I would say you probably don't want to show people outside of your encouraging community that shadow portfolio. You only want to show that bit at the top.
Yeah. And on that, then I suppose, you know, this isn't in the chat. I'm just wondering if something's in your shadow portfolio and then, you know, you get good feedback from people who you trust, would you then move that into kind of like your portfolio that you would show everyone? Is that how it would work?
Yeah, and you know, these are like rule of thumb or whatever. So sometimes there is like, yeah, just polish that one bit because it's almost there, and get that and get that one done. And sometimes you can be really blind to how good something is, as well as worrying about how other stuff. So yeah, I think community is the central thing. So it doesn't have to be Tonic U, that's the one we've created, but whatever it is, it's building that community of people around yourself who can encourage you and support you and help you build that momentum. And sometimes that means saying, you know what, that piece that you think isn't that great is actually really good. Just like finish that one and get that in your portfolio. And yeah.
Yeah, awesome, man. I suppose that kind of goes on to this one. There's another point here about kind of like, do you think it's important to go outside of your friendship groups and colleagues? And I suppose if you've got these other kind of community groups that you can go to, then that kind of answers that one, I suppose.
Yeah, well, this is the thing with feedback, is it is really tricky. Like, good feedback is really hard for the person giving feedback, because they, you know, especially if they lack context around who you are, what stage you're at, what you're trying to do. And a lot of simplistic feedback kind of can end up being, I liked it or I didn't like it, or fixating on small elements of it that the feedback giver is comfortable feeding back on. So that's why I say, like, if you find somebody that you trust who gives good feedback, those people are like gold. You should like hold on to them. But for a general rule, you probably don't want feedback as much as you want just encouragement and support to keep going. Because the other thing that we notice doing this stuff is that it takes a long time to trust your judgment. But actually, you know, a lot of the questions we get asked in their Discord, the person kind of already knows the answer to their question, right? They're looking for somebody else to say it back to them. And actually, what I'd love to say to a lot of those people is like, tell me, like, come on, like, what is good about this piece? What's bad about this piece? You know, how do you think you want to develop it, and that kind of stuff. So I think people need more people like that in their lives. I don't think you need as much professional feedback as you need somebody to kind of push you to build your own voice and your own ability to assess your work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Someone's asked here, should you show like the work that you completed in college and kind of like your university? But I suppose that again is distinguished between, like, you know, if it's relevant for your shadow portfolio or indeed your kind of visible portfolio, as it were.
Yeah, I think if it's really good, like if it's the best stuff from your portfolio, then you know that, and then that those are the bits to put up there. And there's another thing in that book, Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. I think it's her that said it, but it might be someone else. But it says, like, kill your darlings. So there are always things that when you're writing or creating, you end up doing a lot of stuff, and some of it you really want to have this one bit in because you really like it personally, but you know that it's not that great deep down. And so one of the hardest things about being a creator is learning to listen to that voice that's like, you know, that bit that I really want to include, I'm kind of blind to how bad that is, so I'm just going to get rid of it. And yeah, if you Google "kill your darlings," that's like the phrase that the writing community uses for that approach to editing, which I think is important in portfolios as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then another question is about what would be the best way to present your portfolio? like, is there a specific platform or format that you would prefer?
We've seen people do it really well in a few different ways, and honestly, different studios seem to ask different things of people as well. So websites work really well, but sometimes people want you to submit like a PDF. So having it as a version that you can actually like download as well. If you're going to do it in a website or a PDF, you've got to think about the user experience of the person looking at your portfolio. So how easy is it to, like, does the file open, does the website load primarily? Then beyond that, like, how easy is it to understand what's going on? So sometimes we see portfolios and it's just like images with no context, or on the other end of the scale, there's like a little video of the game, but then there's like a whole page of text, and you know, depending on the role that you're applying for, that could actually just be overwhelming for a recruiter. So I think I don't think there's an answer of what's the best way to display it. Like, website's fine, PDF is fine. Yeah. But the thing is to really consider the UX, what's the experience like for the person looking at it.
Awesome. All right, cool. No, that's really useful. We've got another question here from Gordon. So he said, hey, Luke, that was a wonderful talk. I really appreciate how you phrase things in such a memorable way. I was just wondering how you found working from home in the games industry. Has it been an experience for your team that has been positive or had positive aspects to it too?
Yeah, I mean, there's no like one answer to this because everyone's experience has been so different. But yeah, I think for those people that have like a comfortable home environment, for whatever reason, it can be quite good. I've got two kids, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So there's times where it's been a bit challenging, I've got to be honest, but also like really nice because I spend a lot more time with them than I did when I was commuting to London. So yeah, for me, there's been like really good and bad. And I think for our staff, there are people that, you know, if they're on their own, it can get really lonely, or if they're in a situation that's uncomfortable for whatever reason. So you know, I'm really keen for the future to include more flexibility to accommodate people who are in different stages of their life and different lifestyles and stuff. And I hope that there will be a home for the people that want to spend time in offices with other people, but also a world where we can support people being at home if they need to as well. But yeah, great question.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and then we've got another bit of a different one here as well. What are your opinions on NDAs, specifically for students who come up with their original ideas and concepts in games and they want to showcase it, I suppose, to someone?
Yeah, so there is, I don't know if this is what this person's getting at, but there is a bit of a discussion about when you do and don't need NDAs. I think it's extremely unlikely that a studio would, you know, plagiarize your work. And also you've got a paper trail from your application that they've seen it at a certain time. So, you know, you'd be in a good position if anyone did do it. I think one of the interesting things that's come up recently is like the NFTs and artists finding that people have, you know, put their work on the blockchain and claimed it as their own. So that's, so, you know, this stuff is, there are risks to kind of every approach, but I would say I don't know of any examples where a studio has stolen work from a student applicant.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. And then back to the portfolio again. Sorry, they're just popping up as I'm going, so I'm just kind of like reading them out.
That's great.
Luke, would you suggest stating if a portfolio piece was made as university work, or should this not be highlighted at all?
It depends on the context, but I wouldn't bother highlighting it, because unless it's like, well, what are you trying to say by saying that? Because if it's like, what's behind the question, right? So if the person is asking that because they feel that it's not great, but it was really great for a piece of university work, then maybe that's a signal to themselves, you know, that piece either needs more work or put something else in the portfolio.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, like stuff does happen that's really cool. Like if you've made a really awesome piece of work while you're at university, then just, yeah, absolutely put it in the portfolio, because it kind of doesn't matter. If it's great, it's great. And yeah,
awesome. All right, cool. And then another question is around kind of, you know, you said about the Discord group, kind of meeting communities in that. Are there any other things that people should be doing? Like, have you got any other suggestions about meeting people and communities?
Yeah, and well, events like this, right? Absolutely engage with events like this, and anything like this. Like, get to know the speakers. Often put their personal details up at the end. You know, contact them. Like, if you're interested in their talk, go and have a conversation, because people tend to be a lot more approachable and interested to chat than you'd expect. So you could end up with a bunch of industry friends relatively easy. So yeah, I would say, yeah, definitely engage with events like this.
Awesome. All right, cool. And that, I think, about it in terms of the questions. Everyone's just saying thank you in the chat box now, but honestly, I really appreciate it. Actually, one more question. How many crowns have you got on Fall Guys?
Oh man, this is embarrassing. Literally one.
Oh,
So,
man, I'm exactly the same, so it's fine. I don't know, because you work there, so you should have more, I suppose.
yeah, I won a few times during development when it was like beta and like it was just us employees playing, but yeah, now it's just got really hard. The level has kind of gone up, and also I'm playing on a non-gaming laptop with no graphics card, so it's like I'm fighting the lag a bit, but
yeah.
I'm super excited for it, like launching on Switch and Xbox later in the year. That's going to be like my time to shine.
That'll be awesome. What's the highest amount of crowns in the company? Do you have a leader?
Oh my gosh, I do. I'd go and find that out for you. I need to ask someone. It would be silly, probably.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. Honestly, thank you so much for taking the time out today. This is really great. And you know, as Luke said, there's the Discord group there. Its details are on there as well. So if anyone wants to get in touch with him afterwards, then I'm sure he'll be able to answer any of the questions. But thank you so much.